Hello everybody, here I am again. It's funny because I started the old testimony thing and I guess I've kind of changed course to a certain degree. Kind of thinking about most of the videos I ever made compared to the last 3 videos, and there's quite a bit of difference, and I kind of decided, I don't know, I kind of thought to myself, did I say this or did I say that? Did I actually get all that said? Did I actually get all that said? And I did go ahead, I don't normally do this, but I watched my own videos, and I really don't like to do that. It's kind of weird to me. But I watched my last 3 videos. I kind of misspoke a couple of times. Or, well, maybe actually left a few things out. The story about striking my father. There's so much foreground, that would probably need to be in front of that. I'm not justifying it. It's not justifiable. No amount of words were going to solve the problem. And this is just the type of guy that I had to take out instantly, kind of thing. I basically had no choice. I can't take him on. So it was just kind of I knew stepping up to the plate that I had to knock him out instantly. Also, the guy who tried to shoot me in the face, I did not really actually turn the cheek in that situation. I did rip the pistol, or the rifle, out of his hand and smacked him in the face with it. I did give it back to him still loaded. Well, that relationship I was talking about, where I told you I spent like 9-10 months worth of pay on her, well, that might not be exactly 100% truth, because, well, I was spending a lot of money on her, just period. The relationship was, one of those pretty good ones that is expensive, and I was fine with that. But between, doing everything that I could possibly do for her every kind of, let's say, Valentine's Day or something like that, or a date here and a date there, or a date every weekend, a date every Friday and every Saturday kind of thing, plus taking care of my mother and whatnot, it wasn't exactly a full year's pay. Although I was the type of kid that could always squirrel away a lot of money. It was never really a hard thing for me to do. In fact, just a little background, my older sister had this cigarette habit of $2.50 a day. This was back when a pack of cigarettes was $2.50. Well, her and her boyfriend would always go in and buy like 2 packs of cigarettes at a time, and that was $5. Well, I see this happening at a young age, and I'm like, every time I see her buying a pack of cigarettes, I'm gonna put back that same $5. So like when I went to go buy my first car, I bought my first car cash. I don't know. So anyway, I kind of felt guilty about leaving some of that information off. Like, for some reason it seemed like pertinent, or I don't know, important, or maybe even like I wasn't exactly telling the full truth on that last detail. But anyway, okay. The average person has their train of thought, their wheel of thought, progress, pattern, whatever, interrupted constantly throughout their life. Whether that's like school or work, your employer, your kids, your parents, whatever it is that you have to, be responsible for and think about outside of just the progress, thought, pattern that you might have. Let's say if you took a 4-day weekend, an extended weekend, and had like a little mini vacation where you just spent the time maybe reading some of the scriptures and meditating on it daily and nightly. Well, my situation, and I'm going to go back to some testimony here, and that is, to put it into context, I don't have any proof of this, but I'm pretty sure if I'm not exactly accurate about what I'm saying, I'm very close to being accurate about this. My mother, I'm almost 100% positive, lived the longest hooking up to an IV bag and not eating food and getting all your nutrition off of an IV bag. Your life expectancy is 3 to 5 years. My mother did that for 22 years. My mother also, like Guinness Book of World Records information here on my mother. Nobody probably lived off, as far as I know, no one ever lived off of an IV bag without food for that long. I think it's Guinness Book of World Records kind of thing. Also, no one lived 22 years without a stomach, with no stomach at all. She's probably Guinness Book of World Records most times under anesthesiology, like knocked out in Guinness Book of World Records, most experimental surgeries. I could go on and on about my mother maxing out what a doctor could do and still call it practicing medicine. My mom was like an experimental lab rat in so many ways, with this experimental surgery and that experimental surgery. Needless to say, I have back-to-back decades of being at the hospital with nothing but time to think about things. See what I mean? Waiting by her bedside, hooking her up to her IV every night. I did that a lot. Too weak to do it herself. Her own, like her doctor, her nurse, her live-in nurse, that. Being there, waiting for, her going into surgery, and being in a surgery for 16 hours, going into a surgery, being in a surgery for 10 hours, 8 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, surgery after surgery after surgery after surgery. She was probably administered into a hospital more times than anybody could possibly, in a lifetime, impossible. Like, see what I mean? Just, like, the medicine that she was on would put her into, like, these mini comas, where at least 10,000 times in my life, I went up to my mom thinking, oh my God, she actually died. Like, you can't even catch a pulse. You can't get a breath. You put a stethoscope up to her, there's like 12 to 16 heartbeats a minute. She's okay, she's alive. You can't even really revive her. She's resting, let her rest. But I don't know how many times I come home from work, I come home from school, whatever, and I walk into the house. I'm pretty sure, kind of having a heart attack myself personally, like finding my mom dead, although she really actually wasn't dead. This is okay. So 20 years, back-to-back years, 22 years actually, of extremely large amounts of time in a hospital, just trying to support and love and care for and make sure that the some of the doctors and nurses that really aren't even capable of doing their job don't accidentally kill your mother, kind of thing. Because actually, to tell you the truth, if you don't watch them very closely, they will. I've seen nurses drop hypodermic needles onto the dirty hospital floor and then pick it up and try to use it. And if you weren't there to stop them, they would have. So, after that whole entire saga was over, my mom's last dying breath was to not fight with your father and your sisters anymore. So, knowing that I would be dealing with all my family and both sides of my family at my mother's funeral, Well, I dealt with that. But I walked away from my mother's funeral to go home to my own home by myself. The home that, well, she had lived in with me. Thinking that the only way I could fulfill my mother's last dying request is to absolutely have nothing to do with them. So I went home after my mom's funeral, and well, I kind of turned into a little bit of an alcoholic that night, and it extended on for the next 5 months of, well, I kind of been carrying that backpack for 22 years, and now that it's not on there anymore, I really didn't know what to do with myself. So I considered myself finally retired at that point. This is 2010. And I've never really worked another day for anybody ever again. Making a third whole decade of the opportunity to meditate and think. So our Heavenly Father has afforded me something that probably most people have not had, and that's 30 years to just think. Like literally for the last decade, I do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it, and there's absolutely nothing outside of that. I wake up when I want to wake up, I go to bed when I want to go to bed, whatever, I eat what I want to eat, I set my schedule. The outside world influences absolutely zero aspects of my life. The only thing that controls me is actually the herd. Like when I have tons and tons of pregnant mamas, I may go several weeks without really any sleep because they tend to kid in the middle of the night. So one night I might have 2 or 3 moms kid, next night nobody kids, next night 2 or 3 moms kid, whatever. And so, to a certain degree, my herd, these goats, they've controlled my schedule to a certain degree. But yeah, since 2010, basically, I'll just put it this way: from 15 to 25, all my mom, pretty much anyway. 25 to 35, still all my mom, really. And from the age of 35 to 45, it's just been really all me, like a total retirement. Now, what have I done with that? I've raised a whole bunch of goats, helped out a whole bunch of homesteaders, people who need goat's milk because they're lactose intolerant, or 4-H kids. Lots of 4-H kids, actually, tons of 4-H kids come get their show goat and all that good stuff. So maybe I set aside an afternoon because I have a family coming to browse through the herd and maybe shop to get themselves a handful of goats. And then, so I don't know. I guess my point is 30 years to meditate. And I've always been the type of person to, kind of my thought process always goes back to the Almighty in one way or another. Like, pardon the word, scientifically, biologically, socially, spiritually, all that. And so when I interviewed at the advertising agency where healthcare was all I really ever did, at the interview process, it seems like I was really already hired off of the talent of my resume, of my portfolio. Portfolio spoke for itself, but I think it towards the end of my interview, this is 1998, so forgive me if I'm a little bit off on this, but I was asked some form of question of why I had targeted that specific place, because I actually probably could have got a job where it would be much more awesome, clients that were cool, you know, advertising pharmaceutical capabilities, not to consumer, but to, like, you're advertising to hospitals and to doctors, to drug manufacturers, to it's not something that the public ever sees. So it in a way it's kind of boring. And they let me know, that this is all healthcare. And I told them, I said, the reason why I really want a job here is because it's actually really close to where I have my mother. And if I don't have to relocate her, that'd be great. They started asking me questions about her health. At one point in time, while going to the hospital, I had taken like an encyclopedia. Keep taking it, this encyclopedia, take that encyclopedia. The Gray's Anatomy. My mother had the drug Bible, and I was really up to date on medicine, of hospitals, of drugs, of everything. And so it was really right up my alley. And I think I got the job more off of my experience with playing doctor, nurse, taking care of my mother for the last 20 years or whatever, than I actually did with my talent, in a way. I kind of feel that way. Although, whatever. So anyway, over the last decade, well, since 2010, when my mother passed away, all I've really done for 10 years or 11 years or whatever is meditate. That's it. See what I mean? Like, not paying the IRS any money. Telling Uncle Sam, come and get it, buddy. When the USDA sends me paperwork that I'm supposed to fill out, I tell them no. They send me more, I tell them no. I need to count my herd goat. No. When I've had this branch of government and that branch of government, I've kind of sparred with a little bit here and there. Mostly meditating on our Heavenly Father's Word. To the degree of, when my mother died, that's when I decided to reread the Bible for whatever, third or fourth time, in the context of this time I'm rereading it, like kind of like a king seeking out the truth of what Jeremiah 8:8 is, and asking our Heavenly Father to work with me on the entire Bible, from beginning to end. One more time. What is Jeremiah 8:8 and what is not Jeremiah 8:8? And I basically kind of spent a year doing that. So about the year 2011, my Heavenly Father said to go get these goats. And really all I've done is meditate on the scriptures for a decade, with no job, with no employer, with no one telling me what. See, you guys, basically, unless you're like an old man or an old woman or something, you're completely retired, you don't have kids and you don't have grandkids. I don't have any of that, see what I mean? Zero responsibility. I had 22 years of responsibility taking care of my mother. Then all of a sudden, zero, none. What have I done with it? Get to know our Heavenly Father more and more and more. And basically, from 2010 into 2011, I reread the entire Bible underneath the context of anything and everything could be a possible Jeremiah 8:8. Then after having done that, I basically put my book, the Bible, up on the shelf for a decade and let it get dusty. But it's all written in here, it's all written in here. To put a little context into this, The whole entire time when I was a kid, like reading, writing, math, those kinds of things actually were something I could care less about and I didn't care. Just, I never did, and I never really cared about school whatsoever. School being kindergarten through 8th grade, because I never went to high school. If a teacher would say in social studies or science or history or whatever, you need to read chapters 22, 23, and 24 or whatever, okay? Pages this and this through this and this, and there's like 60 pages you have to read. That's your homework assignment. I would look at each page and I would pass the test. Never in my entire life, outside of really the Bible, did I ever read a book ever. I've just absorbed information by some form of osmosis. There's a movie called Temple Grandin. It's about a woman with autism. She's the only person that I know that could do the same thing, where you could just like look at a page and know what's on it. So I've always been able to do that, to the degree of I still remember basically every page that I ever looked at and every school book that I ever looked at, kindergarten through 8th grade, and all the books that I looked at in college. I know what each page looks like still. See what I mean? It's like, so going through and actually opening the book is just tedious, and I don't do it. I've always had this thing, I guess, where sitting there and reading each individual word is just tedious to me, and just looking at the page and pretty much knowing what's on it is kind of how it's always gone. I could go through all the trouble that I had as a kid dealing with this, but yeah, I never really ever read I never did my homework. I never looked at anything. I still walked up and passed the test. In fact, I went from 8th grade through 4 years of working at like a factory and a couple other places. And then when I went to college, well, you can't get into college unless you have a high school degree, right? So I just walked up and took my GED, right? I was above the top 2 percentile that anybody has ever had in taking the GED. Like, I basically 100% aced the GED without stepping foot in high school not one single day. See, it's like our Heavenly Father just downloads the information that I need, and then I have it. To the degree of, there were some times, I don't know if you guys know the old Scantrons that they used to have. I don't know if they still have it, where you kind of use your little pencil and like scratch in multiple choice A, B, C, D, E, F, G kind of thing. When we had those tests, you know what I did? I just took my pencil and went A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, A, B, B, C, C, C. Turned it in. And I almost always passed the test. Like, I didn't even read the test. I didn't even look at the test. I just filled in some random dots because I don't really care. My Heavenly Father will take care of it. And that's how my entire childhood was. Like, I knew it was just a waste of time. And the information was just there for me. I'll take the test. I'll pass the test. Did I ever do the homework? No. Did I ever read the assignments? No. The information was just like given to me. Not lying, not making this up. It's all in like school records and whatnot. Anyway, so when I come and tell you all that I have the winning hand, I've cross-referenced this about 1 billion ways over for 3 decades. Definitely one straight decade. Back-to-back decades followed by another decade. I tell you I have the winning hand. I'm telling you I have the winning hand. Love you guys. I mean it.